Thank you for joining us for session 3 of the 6-part Family Caregiver Education Series, brought to you by the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia. My name is Donna Lawrence, and I'm the Regional Coordinator of Education and Outreach for the counties of Cumberland, Colchester, and East Hants. The content of this session could bring up questions and emotions. There will be a phone number to call for support at the end of each session. This session will look at day-to-day living. We begin our session by acknowledging the land on which we live. We are on sacred land that has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. We are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and we acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. So our objectives for today's session are to understand the philosophy of person-centered care, to explore possible communication changes and strategies at each stage of the disease, and also to explore ways to support your person with dementia so they can maintain their independence and quality of life. So what do we mean by person-centered philosophy of care? As we care for someone, we keep in mind that they are a unique individual, that they have their own unique values, personality, and personal history. We acknowledge that one person with dementia is just that, one person with dementia. We respect that each person has a right to be treated with dignity and respect, and participate in decisions that guide their life. And we focus on the person's strengths and abilities, and not just on their illness or what they can no longer do. Person-centered care focuses on the person and not the disease. So given this person-centered philosophy, what can we do? Well, one of the best things to do is to learn about dementia and its impact. Learn about the disease and how the disease can affect a person's abilities. The more you understand your person's reality, the better able you are to provide the care or assistance they need. We've probably all heard the phrase, knowledge is power. Well, that is especially true when you are caring for someone with dementia. The more you learn, the better prepared you will be to journey with your person through this disease. We can also help to maintain a person's abilities and independence. So learn about the changes the disease may cause so that you have realistic expectations of the person's abilities. Try to find the right balance between offering help and support instead of automatically stepping in and doing something for the person if they are able to do it for themselves. So for example, if they are having difficulty remembering a word, give them some time to come up with it. Sometimes that could take up to 20 seconds. However, if you are sensing that they are getting anxious or frustrated trying to come up with that word, then that may be the time when you speak up. It is about meeting the person with dementia where they are. As caregivers, it is about practicing patience, even though that isn't always easy. And as we offer care, it's so important to not lose sight of the person. While certain abilities will be lost, the person's emotions and feelings will remain, as will their need for companionship and belonging. Try to involve the person in activities that are meaningful to them and fit their abilities. This will go a long way in adding to their quality of life and help the person maintain a sense of self. We all want to have purpose, to be useful, have meaning in our lives, no matter who we are or the struggles that we face. Communication enables us to express who we are and allows us to relate to one another. When we communicate, we convey messages or exchange information to share our needs and opinions, our ideas and our beliefs, our feelings and our emotions, and our experiences and values. Communication is more than talking and listening. It involves understanding and interpreting. When we're talking about person-centered care, communication is an essential component of that care. So let's take a few minutes to explore communication and get a better understanding of how communication changes with the progression of the disease and the changing abilities of the individual. This will help to show how we as caregivers need to change and adapt our approach and strategies to meet the person's current needs. We all know that information is conveyed in many different ways. There is verbal communication, which are the words we use and understand. There is nonverbal communication, which is our body language and includes things like our facial expressions, our posture, and our gestures. There is also written communication, which are the words we use to read and write. And there is our paraverbal communication, which are things like our tone of voice, our volume, and how quickly or slowly we speak. We need to pay attention to the messages we are sending through our words, but especially through our tone and body language, because 93% of our communication is nonverbal. As you communicate, know that what the person says or does and how a person behaves has meaning. Never lose sight of the person and what they are trying to tell you. And remember that the key to positive conversations with people living with dementia is to be respectful, sensitive, and consistent in your communication. Communication involves a sender and a receiver, whether that's talking to someone face-to-face, texting, sending an email, or talking on the phone. In order to have successful communication, you need a sender and a receiver. For someone with dementia, these communication skills will become increasingly difficult as the disease progresses. They will have difficulties understanding what is being said, but they will also have increasing difficulty expressing themselves and the ability to be understood. Difficulties with communication can be discouraging for the person living with dementia, as well as their care partners. So consider creative ways to understand and connect with each other. So now let's look at how communication abilities will change for a person with dementia as the disease progresses. In the early stage of the disease, you may notice that your person with dementia has difficulty finding the right word. It may be right there on the tip of their tongue, but they have trouble saying it. So what may happen is they find another word to substitute. So for example, the person may be talking about a clock, but can't come up with the word clock. Instead, they may call it a calendar or a watch. The idea is close. It's something that shows time, but it isn't a word that they wanted. In these early stages, your person may not always understand what you are saying. For example, you might ask your person to pass the salt, but they may not know what the salt is. They may lose track of the conversation and repeat certain things or make the same observations repeatedly. So for example, you could be having a conversation and there's a tree that appeals to them. And they might say, "Oh, isn't that a pretty tree?" And then a little while later in the conversation, they may end up saying the same thing again. "Oh, what a pretty tree that is out there." They may have difficulty writing and reading. Even if they've been an avid reader all their lives, they may not be able to comprehend some of what they're reading. They may have difficulty using the telephone, whether that be initiating calls or making the same call repeatedly. Or if they are talking on the phone, they may have trouble following the conversation because they don't have the visual cues they would have when talking to someone in person. Then, as the disease progresses to the middle stage, communication changes will become even more noticeable. Your person with dementia may have increasing difficulty with finding words. The right word may not come to them at all. You may notice that they start using shorter sentences and gradually move towards one-word answers. They may have difficulty understanding the meaning of what you are telling them. So, for example, they may take a phrase quite literally, like "it's raining cats and dogs," or "I'm up to my eyeballs," or it's time to hit the sack, which could in turn cause the person with dementia some anxiety or confusion. They may find it increasingly difficult following a conversation, or they may start to withdraw from conversations. And they may start to avoid social gatherings altogether when there are lots of conversations taking place at once. A lot of how we communicate is through our body language and tone of voice. So it's important to pay attention to our nonverbal communication. For instance, think of a time when someone was so excited that you couldn't understand what they were saying, but you could tell that they were excited about something just by their body language. Our body language and our tone tell us a lot. As the disease progresses even further, communication abilities continue to decline. Your person with dementia may still be able to understand, but may not be able to express themselves using words. They may be unable to read and write. They may have difficulty recognizing family members. They may have difficulty expressing their feelings verbally, but those feelings and emotions can often be expressed through their behaviors or gestures. So things like smiles or a laugh, a grimace, or even a glare. It is at this later stage of the dementia that family members can play a critical role in aiding communication, especially to care partners who may not know the person as well. Family members have knowledge of the person's preferences and hobbies, likes and dislikes. So for instance, they would know that mom likes having a shower over getting a bath. Or they would know that their husband likes to have a snack before going to bed. Family members may be better able to interpret the individual's body language. So for instance, they would know that their wife's hip gets a little achy when the weather is damp. And that grimace is because she needs to either shift in her chair or get up and go for a walk. Sharing this with those involved in the person's care helps to ensure that their needs continue to be known and met. And when the person is not able to communicate well, it is important for family members to advocate for their person, to be their voice when they aren't able to let their care partner know their needs. We're going to take a quick break, so please stay tuned and we'll be right back. So welcome back to our session on day-to-day living. So let's take a few minutes to consider some communication strategies. As the disease progresses, people will have more challenges understanding words. So it is helpful to use your body and voice tone to help them understand. Think about some gestures that you can use. An outstretched hand is an invitation to come. A warm smile is welcoming. But shaking a finger could be seen as something negative, even if it's just a small thing. And we all know that rolling our eyes could be understood as impatience. Think about your body language. A person with dementia may understand your body language and tone of voice more than what you are saying. Give your person time to process what they are saying, and give them time to express their own thoughts. Listen for similar meaning words. They may say car, but they really mean bus. Or listen for similar related sounding words. They may say cat, but they really mean cap. Be clear and concise. Talk slowly and clearly, and use short, simple sentences. Use closed-ended questions that can be answered with a yes or no, or with a choice. So for example, do you want coffee or tea? Do you want to go for a walk, or do you want to just sit? Use words that are familiar to the person. Use descriptors. So for instance, instead of saying, hand me the mug, say something like, hand me the red mug on the table. Or instead of saying something like, go get your jacket, say something like, go get your blue jacket in the hall closet. And if you have to repeat it a few times, then use the same wording. Go get your blue jacket in the hall closet, instead of changing the wording to something like, get your blue jacket. Keep your words consistent. When we communicate with someone with dementia, think about their communication abilities and try to adapt your communication style to fit with their needs, because they can't adapt to fit your needs. Think about these tips and how they can help in your communication with someone who is having communication difficulties. Stay calm and relaxed as much as possible. Take a deep breath if you need to, because some days communication can be really difficult and frustrating. If possible, approach the person from the front so they can see you. Sometimes if approached from behind, they might get scared. Get the person's attention by saying their name and maintaining eye contact. And if they seem confused, then introduce yourself and who you are in relation to them. So for instance, I'm your nurse, or I'm your neighbor next door, or I'm your grandson. Position yourself so the person can see you and can focus their attention on you. And if they seem distracted, then try to find the source of that distraction. Maybe the TV is on and you need to turn it off, or the radio is blaring and they can't listen to you while it's on. Keep your statements short and simple. Give the person time to respond, and give yourself time to understand. And if you don't understand, then say so. Use actions as well as words. If it's time to go for a walk, then point to the door and show them their jacket. Listen carefully. And most of all, be patient. The person with dementia is trying to communicate as best they can. But what about those times when you don't understand? If you say that you understand and you don't, you risk losing trust by lying, or you may anger your person if they are expecting you to do something and it isn't done. Instead, say something like, "Can you help me? I don't understand." Make sure to include the person in the conversation, even if you don't think they understand. No one likes to feel excluded. Don't talk about the person when they are in the room. Talk with them. Being ignored is worse than not understanding. Next, we will turn our focus to the ways we can support the person with dementia with their daily activities. So let's take a few minutes now to talk about activities of daily living. When we talk about activities of daily living, we are talking about a person's ability to function in their daily lives. When we are talking about these activities of daily living, we are talking about basic functions like bathing or getting dressed, their ability to feed themselves, toileting, as well as physical movement like walking. When we talk about instrumental activities of daily living, we're talking about activities that require higher functioning abilities because they are more complex. These would include things like driving, managing finances, taking medications, shopping, and preparing meals. Activities of daily living are what people do at a basic or fundamental level to meet their physical needs. Instrumental activities of daily living, on the other hand, are not necessarily necessary for fundamental functioning, but you do need to be able to do these things if you want to live independently. Think for a moment of the activities that you see deteriorating in your person with dementia. It is usually during those instrumental activities of daily living when you first notice that something isn't right. So for example, a person may lose their ability to cook independently in the early stage of the disease, which is an instrumental activity of daily living, but they still may be able to cook with some assistance or to help with cooking. It is when the dementia is mild that instrumental activities of daily living are compromised. When the dementia is more advanced in that moderate or middle stage, the person with dementia can usually continue to carry out some of the personal activities of daily living with some prompting. Severe dementia is said to exist when a person requires assistance with those basic activities of daily living, such as grooming, dressing, toileting, or eating. It is important to understand what the person you are supporting is able to do, but also know that this can change and fluctuate on a daily basis through this dementia journey. It is important to know that the person with dementia may not be able to accurately say what they are able to do or not able to do. Know that this is part of the disease. Know that there are often discrepancies between what the person thinks they can do and are actually doing for themselves and what their caregivers see. And unfortunately, know that conflict may arise. There may be a difference between what the person is willing to have done for them and what the caregiver sees as needing to be done. Here are some things you can do to assist the person with dementia with doing instrumental activities of daily living. As the caregiver, you need to know about your person's present strengths, abilities, and resources. So for example, are they able to take their own medication? Can they take their medication if it's prepared for them in advance? Help them do tasks by providing direction, but don't necessarily do the tasks for them. So for example, you can assist the person with cooking by helping them set up what they need and giving directions or reminders as they go along. Know that tasks that are too difficult or unfamiliar or have multiple steps and demands may exceed the person's abilities and result in frustration. It is important to balance what they are expected to do with their capabilities. If they are expected to do something that is too complex or demanding for them, it could lead to behavioral responses. Driving is one of those instrumental activities of daily living that is a challenging issue. Driving a vehicle is a complex activity that requires several abilities and skills, such as quick reactions, the ability to divide your attention between watching a traffic light and pedestrians while also keeping your foot on the brake. Driving requires good judgment. It also requires understanding the rules of the road, the ability to find a destination, and adequate eyesight and hearing. Dementia causes changes that affect a person's ability to drive a motor vehicle safely. As the disease progresses, the person with dementia will have to stop driving. It is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Safety is of the utmost importance for the driver, passengers, and other people on the road. A diagnosis of dementia does not automatically mean that a person is incapable of driving. Some people may be capable of driving safely for some time after the diagnosis, depending on when in the disease progression the person has been diagnosed and the rate of the disease as it progresses. But eventually, people with dementia must stop driving because it will no longer be safe to do so. We recognize that driving represents freedom, independence, and mobility. So when the person with dementia has to stop driving, their reactions may vary from immediate acceptance to strong resistance. Also, when they stop driving, this can have an impact on other family members. So for example, if the primary driver in the family is the person with dementia and they can no longer drive, then other family members, for example, a spouse, will also lose access to that source of transportation and have to find other resources. It is best to plan ahead to prepare for when the person with dementia can no longer drive. Talk about it. The earlier, the better. Be aware of changes in the person's driving skills. If, for instance, the person with dementia forgets to stop at a stop sign, then it may be time to look at alternatives. Or if they know how to use the signal lights, the gas, and the brake, but can't remember how to turn on the windshield wipers, then maybe it's time for them to stop driving. Don't co-pilot. If the person needs your help to navigate or to obey the rules of the road, that may be a sign that it is no longer safe for them to drive. If the safety of the person with dementia, passengers, pedestrians, and others on the road is at risk, it's clear that driving has to stop immediately. Next, we'll talk about the importance of knowing and finding that balance between a person's abilities and engaging them in meaningful activities. But first, we're going to take a quick break, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our session on day-to-day living. Part of person-centered care is encouraging the person with dementia to engage in activities that can bring them a sense of accomplishment, meaning, and joy. It can give them a sense that they can continue to live a normal life, even with dementia. Activities need to be matched with interests, needs, and abilities. And know that an activity that was enjoyed one day may not hold interest again for a while. So it's important to have lots of variety. Meaningful activities use the skills and abilities that the person has now and will need to be adjusted depending on their thinking and physical limitations. These activities draw on the person's interests, life experience, including their work experience, and habits, the things they like to do. We are talking about activities that are adult in nature. As I say that though, if a person with dementia loved cats all their life, they may, for instance, enjoy having a toy cat on their bed with them. Or a woman who loved having small children in her life might do well with having a baby doll. This wouldn't be considered a childish activity, but is more of a reflection of what is important in the person's life and something that may bring them some happiness. The focus is on the person with dementia getting pleasure from the activity. It's not about them doing a good job or producing a finished product. It's about the journey and not the destination. For example, if your person enjoyed cooking, well, then you could look through recipe books together, maybe even plan a meal together. And maybe you could cook together, even if it just means that they stir together some of the ingredients. Or if they enjoy doing puzzles but find them too hard, maybe you could ask them to turn the pieces over so that the color sides are facing up. Or maybe just get a smaller puzzle. Or maybe ask them to gather all the edge pieces together. Meaningful activities need to draw on personal strengths, interests, habits, and preferences. They need to be dignified and appropriate. And they need to focus on the process and not the end result. So for instance, maybe they can no longer do the laundry, but they can help with parts of it. They may not be able to operate the washing machine, but they can move the clothes from the washer to the dryer. Or they can fold the towels, or they can sort the socks. Or perhaps they can no longer prepare a whole meal, but they could still put bread in the toaster. Allow your person to do the things they can do. Give them as much independence as possible. If they can still get dressed on their own, that's great, even if it takes a little longer than you'd like. And pay attention to their behavior. If they walk away from an activity, it may mean it's too much for them today, or maybe they're bored and need something else to grab their attention. Activities benefit not only the person with dementia, but they can also help you to connect with your person and appreciate each other. It's good to have something positive and enjoyable to do together. For the person with dementia, it helps them have a sense of independence and accomplishment, which is good for their self-esteem. It keeps them stimulated and can improve their mood and sleep. If they're active in the day, they may sleep better at night. There is also evidence that when people are positively engaged, they may be less likely to develop responsive behaviors that could be challenging for you. Someone once shared this about her journey with her mom. She said, "Dementia didn't take away the things my mom liked to do. We just learned to do them differently over time." There are still opportunities on this dementia journey to find purpose and quality of life. Each person's journey is unique, and what works one day may not work the next. So try and find as much variety as you can. So what are some things you can do to support your person with dementia if they are still living at home? You may want to consider making changes to the home so that it is safer and easier for them to navigate. One of the things that changes for people with dementia is their ability to see. This is in addition to any vision changes that come with age. So for example, if you have a white toilet sitting on a white floor, they may not be able to see clearly where the toilet is. So perhaps it might be better to have a different colored toilet seat cover. Or you can increase the lighting throughout the home to eliminate shadows. If there are tripping hazards or things in the way, like large floor plants or piles of newspapers, for instance, try to move them so they aren't in the way. Excess noise can create agitation because people become more sensitive to stimulation. So it can be helpful to find ways to reduce noise. There are also assistive technologies such as medication dispensers and stove sensors, which will shut off a burner if it's left on. Make sure there are handrails wherever there are steps, whether that's inside or outside. Mark the edge of steps so they are clearly visible, perhaps in a contrasting color. And if at all possible, make sure they are non-slip. Keep cooking and cleaning supplies within easy reach, not stored up high. And if it does need to be stored higher, then make sure there's a sturdy step stool with handrails that's handy. Secure rugs in place. But if they could cause a potential trip and fall, then remove them. Install grab bars in the bathtub and next to the toilet. You may even want to consider personal items, like long clothing that could cause a trip, and ensuring they have properly fitted footwear that are non-slip. The home improvements we've looked at can be particularly useful if your person with dementia lives alone. Living in a place that is safe, familiar, and comfortable is important to everyone, including people with dementia. A diagnosis of dementia does not automatically mean that a person is incapable of living alone. Some people may be capable of living on their own for some time after their diagnosis. Safety is important. So here are some strategies for people living alone with dementia. Leave a set of house keys with a trusted neighbor. Arrange to have someone call or visit once a day. Have an automatic shutoff kettle. Lower the temperature in the hot water heater. Post a visible, easy-to-read list of emergency phone numbers. For finances, use direct deposit for checks and automatic withdrawal for bill payments. Make someone else, like a substitute decision maker or power of attorney, responsible for handling finances. And for other day-to-day activities, get some help, like Meals on Wheels or grocery delivery services, or someone to come and help with housekeeping. There are also home support services, such as home care, available throughout Nova Scotia Department of Continuing Care and through private home healthcare companies. If your person with dementia lives alone, it can be challenging to find the balance between maintaining their independence and their health and safety. Family members may be concerned about keeping the person with dementia safe, and the person with dementia, understandably, wants to maintain their independence and remain in their home. Another factor in this situation is that at some point in the disease, the person with dementia may no longer have the insight to see what their limitations are and may overestimate their ability to cope with situations. Also, with declines in their judgment, they may underestimate the risk of a situation. If the person with dementia no longer has an understanding of their own safety and ability to look after themselves, family members and healthcare professionals may have to determine if it is still suitable for the person to live alone. It is always best to involve the person with the disease as early on as possible in discussions about living alone and alternatives and ways to maintain safety. In this session on day-to-day living, we've talked about a person-centered philosophy of care. We've talked about communication strategies, finding the balance between providing support and maintaining independence, and meaningful activities for both the person with dementia and you as caregiver. So as we come to the end of this session, try to remember this, that the person with dementia is doing the best they can. They aren't trying to give you a hard time. They are having a hard time. Try to practice good communication skills. Break down activities into simpler steps. Provide opportunities for success. And try to balance assistance with independence. Sometimes it means being a bit of a detective to try and figure out what your person is trying to communicate, or finding a better way for them to understand you. Be gentle with yourself and be gentle with your person. You are all doing the best you can. We have a number of different programs and supports to help you through this journey. We have caregiver education, like this 6-part program, and we continue to develop more courses and workshops for caregiver education. We have support groups, which are opportunities for caregivers to come together for mutual support, to learn more about the disease and strategies for providing care. We have Alzheimer education on our website with various guest speakers who talk about a variety of topics related to dementia. And our website has lots of information and resources. And of course, our info line provides an opportunity for confidential one-on-one support, information, education, and specific referral needs for individuals and their circumstances. This service is provided by caring and knowledgeable staff and is available across the province to persons with dementia and their caregivers. That info line number is 1-800-611-6345. All our public programs are provided at no cost to participants. Thank you for joining us for session 3 in the 6-part Family Caregiver Education Series, brought to you by the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia. It's never too early or too late to connect with us. Please give us a call or send us an email if you have questions or need to talk. And if you're not in Nova Scotia, please contact your local Alzheimer's Society. If you would like more information about the information presented here or copies of the resources mentioned, then please call your local Alzheimer's Society. Thank you.